only 3% of women-owned businesses ever do $1 million or more of revenue a year, which to me is insane. So that was my goal. I was talking to my
Yeah.
advisors and my husband and, my accountant, and he's like, "Elizabeth, what are you doing? Like, why are you leaving this business behind? It's doing so well." People who are
Mhm.
holistically happy with their definition of success, they have achieved it.
Yeah.
They're excited to have others get to that same place or whatever that place is for them.
Today's episode is brought to you by Andy Bovender, the founder of the Bovender team out of the Carolinas. Him and his team have helped more than 5,000 families in 5 major areas of the Carolinas. So if you have that client who's been thinking about making a move to or from that area, Andy's team are the ones to call. Today, I sit down with Elizabeth Convery, and we have just a really great, engaging conversation about all things real estate, life, and ultimately what it means to be successful. If you're interested, scroll down to the link below and you can learn more about her coaching program that she offers. Additionally, if you're wanting to hang out with high performing agents more regularly, take a look at the link for the Inner Circle group. There's currently a wait list. But it's a phenomenal opportunity to sit down and chat with, on the regular, most of the guests of this podcast. And as always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Sean Conkler. Elizabeth, thank you for sitting down with me. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. So nice to see you and to meet you.
It's so bizarre. Again, like I don't know how we have not crossed paths at this point between all of our connections.
I agree. The world is very small, so eventually it was going to happen. So here
I
we are.
think so.
Yeah.
It was, it was really funny. Susie, who introduced us, I'm not exaggerating. Within a week, 3 people pinged me about, oh my God, you should have Susie on your podcast. And I was like, I hear you guys. It's happening.
It's there's some floodgate opened in the universe, and you have got to have her here. She's the
It's
best.
true.
I love Susie. Yeah.
I had a mentor years and years and years ago, and he's like, hey, when there's a lot of those weird coincidences that keep reoccurring, that's the sign you're on the path.
Yes.
When you don't have those, you've meandered way, way, way too far.
Oh no.
So I've been getting a lot of those, and I hope you do too, and continue to.
Good.
There's so much about your story that's fascinating to me. But if you could get the listeners up to speed, you had a real estate team for a number of years. You guys were crushing it. You grew it. Can you just jump in with your story from there?
Yeah. So just quick background. I have been in real estate. In 2025, I celebrated 20 years in real estate, which was crazy. So my whole career, right out of college.
Wow.
In 2013, after working in commercial real estate and, on the corporate side, I decided that I wanted to get into residential sales because I loved people, right? I loved putting transactions together. I loved building relationships. And I have a background in hospitality. I felt like there was a better way to sell than what was happening in 2013, particularly in the Philadelphia market, which was a lot of big box shops at the time. And so I started a boutique residential brokerage company called Convery Real Estate in 2013, which I grew and was the first independent to partner with Compass when they came to the Philly market in 2018.
Wow.
The company I wanted to have $1 million business because only 3% of women-owned businesses ever do $1 million or more of revenue a year, which to me is insane. So that was my goal. So we did it, and then we went above that, and we kept growing. And
Great.
last summer, I started really thinking. The business was 12 years old, and I started thinking about where I wanted to be for the next stage of my career.
Yeah.
And I determined that I didn't want to be a team lead anymore. I had done it for so many years with great success. I loved it, but it wasn't fulfilling to me in the way that it used to be.
Hmm.
And so it was a lot of reflection. I mean, deep reflection. It's hard to give up something that you've built, that you've loved. But what I realized was that my path had pivoted.
Mm.
2 years ago, I started a coaching business for women as a side passion project, and it started really taking off. And I realized that's the lane I want to be in. And there's only so many hats, Sean, I think you can wear at one time well. And so something
Yes.
had to change. So yeah, I decided to take myself out of team leadership last summer. And in doing so, I was able to promote two women on the team, one who I had mentored for 5 years. She was a brand new agent when she came to me,
Wow.
another who had been on my team for 8 years. And they were elevated to principal agents at Compass, which was it was just such a like a full circle moment for me to see them grow and to become principals. And then they each took half of the team. And so I pulled myself out, and in so doing, was able to promote them to the next level of their career. And now I am focusing my time and energy on solo sales. I'm going back to my roots of selling real estate, which I love, and growing my coaching business.
There's so much there to talk about. I don't even. No, I mean, like, that's wild. I mean, most people make a pivot out of like a pain point, and you did it at a like peak pleasure point. Like you're
It's
you're
so funny you
crushing it.
should say it that way, Sean, because, of course, when you're making these decisions, you're not doing it in a vacuum, right? You're talking to so many people. I was talking to my
Yeah.
advisors and my husband and, my accountant, and he's like, "Elizabeth, what are you doing? Like, why are you leaving this business behind? It's doing so well." And especially after some hard years, for us,
Yeah.
2023 and 2024 were not the best years for real estate, right? They weren't 21 and 22, I'll tell you that.
True.
So, we were on this, like, spike up, and I thought, "Yeah, but you know what? If it's not waking you up," this is the way I felt, "if it wasn't waking me up and exciting me,
Yeah.
why was I still doing it? Like, how much money could you throw at me to not be excited every day?"
I feel that genuinely. Like
Yeah.
that's always my test is do I wake up in the morning excited thinking about this thing or
Mhm.
dreading it?
Yeah.
Like
I was
what's
talking to somebody recently, and they were saying I think it was at a party or something, and they said, "Oh, if I won the lottery," which I always think is funny because I mean, I don't play the lottery, so I don't really I mean, fine, whatever. But they said, "If I win the lottery, I would do this." And it was something totally different than what they were doing. And they said, "Well, what would you do if you had no financial worries, nothing?" I said, "I'd still keep doing what I'm doing."
yeah.
And I realized how incredibly rare that is.
Yeah. It's funny the Powerball was like I don't know like 4,000 billion something dollars and so Cielo was like I'm going to go buy some tickets
Well, of
and she
course you
bought
have to when
tickets.
it gets to that level, when they start putting out on billboard.
Yeah, when it was like just like
Because
crazy
then it's
silly
more like
money.
a social thing. Yeah.
And then we have two boys, and one's 19, the other one's 21, and we're having dinner, and there was like, "Hey, what would you do?"
Yeah.
And it's funny. I was like, "Well, I would basically fund more of this stuff. I
Yeah.
wouldn't stop doing it. I would just have more revenue to throw. I would have just way more money to play with,
Yeah.
and like market and like." But like this is the part like sitting down with people and having these conversations and making these recordings absolute highlight of my week by
Well,
far.
and it's like it's such an interesting question, and I think it shows that you're doing what you love, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I do in my coaching with my clients is I try to help them understand their definition of success. Because I
Yeah.
think I know the industry defines success with certain metrics, right?
100%.
And one of the sort of ways to come up with your own definition of success is answering the question we just both answered. If there was
I would
no
agree.
limitation of time and no limitation of money, what would you be doing? Who is the person you would be?
Yeah.
Because that somewhere in there is your definition of success.
I'd be willing to bet the hardest part of your day isn't the work. It's the mental load. It's the decision fatigue. It's the shuffling of priorities while you're already playing catch up. You're checking off things from your to-do list just as fast as they're getting added. And I'd also be willing to bet some of those meaningful business relationships you've had in the past have begun to fade. Ace Your Day is a physical deck of 52 strategic cards designed to halt fatigue. Refined by real world results, this system replaces chaos of a to do list with a curated set of high impact actions. It's simple: set a timer for 15 minutes, draw a card, and make your move. The deck handles the thinking, you drive the business. Building a secure business should not be a guessing game. Let's stop overthinking the day and trust a system that prioritizes connections and relationships. Let the deck handle the strategy. You focus on the results. Click the link in the description to reclaim your day 15 minutes at a time. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head very subtly, but it's who would you be? It's the
Who would you be?
who within the success. The success thing within our industry, it actually really, really bothers me
Who?
is, it's we all put luxury after our titles and 1%. And then there's this weird pressure. Well, you're doing successful alone, then you should hire people, and then you should do this, and you should build a team. And it's like, but if that's not your DNA, don't do that. Like,
Well, I think you're entirely correct. I think that this is an industry that pushes you pretty significantly to
yeah,
become a team lead as you grow and get, more successful and you have more business. But you're exactly right. It is not for everyone. And I having, left the role, I've seen all different sides of it. But I think that's totally okay.
that's the part that doesn't enter the conversation.
Right.
And it's like the end of the sentence should be, and that's fine too.
Yes.
Right? It's like,
Let's just add that piece in.
yeah, just don't
Let's just
forget
make it
that
go, that's
piece.
fine too. Yeah.
It's like when when your child gets old enough to go to college, and they're like, oh, I was going for accounting, but I don't want to, and you're like, and that's fine too. What
That's fine
would
too.
wake you up in the morning excited? Like, I want to do art. Great, go
Yeah.
explore, go take some classes,
Yeah.
go make some art. Like, do that. Why
When
not?
I was starting my own business, when I was, starting the residential brokerage, I was working in New York, and I was in, commercial I was in actually hospitality, hotel sales for
Hmm.
a large global, brokerage company. And so I was leaving this six-figure salary and all the perks that come with, this glamorous job selling full-service hotels in New York City. And I sat down with a mentor, and I said, "Am I crazy?" And she, "To start to leave all this to start my own business?" And she said, "Yeah, you are. But let."
I love it. What an amazing mentor! Like,
What an
just
amazing
say
mentor.
it
She
the way
is,
it
she's
is.
amazing.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
But you know what she said? She said, "But let's put some guardrails on it. Let's figure out how to make it work for you." And it's no
Yeah.
different than the example you just gave of like, you wanna study art? Okay, great. Let's figure out the plan. Let's put some
Yes.
guardrails on it. Let's get you to where you wanna go by following your passion, but
Yeah.
also applying that same level of business planning and strategic mindset and
Yes.
all of the things that come with it. It's wonderful. I'm reading now. I'm teaching at St. Joe's, which is where I went to undergrad in Philadelphia.
How cool is
I'm
that? Full
teaching
circle.
small business finance this year, in their spring semester, and
Big
it's
gap
great.
with a lot of agents.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited about it because the chair of the department has given me a long leash to create this course.
Great.
But one of the books that we are doing, and I'm rereading it now, is The E-Myth Revisited by Michael
Amazing.
Gerber. You
One of
know
my
it?
favorite books. Yep.
Yeah. So in this book, and you probably remember this, it talks about the technicians. So
Hmm.
these people who start a business because they're passionate about the thing that the business will be doing. So I think one of the examples is a baker, and she's
The
making
baker.
pies, and
Yeah.
Sarah is her name. I know this because I just read the book. Um, I'm not that good to know remember her name, but anyway, so Sarah is the character in the book who is making pies, and she's really good at making pies. But so then she decides that she's going to start her own pie shop.
Hmm.
And because she doesn't think, like we just talked about with the guardrails, with the strategic mindset, with recognizing the things that she's not good at and the people
Mm,
that she can hire to actually help her, she ends up hating her passion, right?
yeah. And I've
And
been there.
getting out of the business. And so many of us entrepreneurs, we do that, right? We do that. And I
100%.
saw myself doing that when I dissolved my team. I saw myself beginning to hate it.
Oh,
And not because I didn't think strategically, not because I didn't put all the guardrails in. I did. I mean, the business was 12 years old. It certainly got to where it needed to go.
yeah.
It was because I had changed. And part of the
Good
e-myth
point.
is that business owners and their businesses have to grow hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I think when you become a new version of yourself, it's natural to want to evolve what you're doing next.
Hey, friends, I have a small favor to ask. For me to continue to bring you outstanding guests who share their best kept secrets for growing a successful real estate business, please take a moment and hit that like button so agents like you can find this content. And also hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Now, back to our show.
I
Way to
threw a
look
lot
at
at
it.
you, Sean.
No, that was yeah. The E Myth was first of all, it's profound, and I think every agent, I think actually should read it because I think there's pieces of the business we're really passionate about, but then there's that pressure to be everything to everybody, and then we're bookkeepers and accountants
Sure.
and marketers
And we
and
don't know how to do it.
we don't. And it's like to your point earlier, it's like sure you can wear a lot of hats, but a lot of them aren't going to fit, and a lot of them suck, and they don't match your outfit, and there's
Yeah, you're gonna
something
look ridiculous. Yeah.
right. It's like a clown hat, and you shouldn't be wearing it, or whatever it is. But but again, I think then it goes to the part of we just get wrapped up in doing, and then we don't recognize or realize like, oh, that's not actually bringing me the joy that I thought it would, and I need to offload this, but I don't, so I'm just going to keep doing it begrudgingly, and you stack those on, and then you wake up one day and you're like, I don't love this. This kind of just sucks right now.
Mhm. And I mean, I think it's natural when you're a business owner to have those moments when it sucks, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think we'll be lying to people for like, it's happy all the time. You're gonna be like on cloud nine as a business owner. It's like, well, no, you're not. But being able to see and still stay aligned with your greater
Yeah.
why, I think is the difference, right?
That's a great point.
And that kinda comes full circle to you talking about the industry and your gripe with it, that we're pushing everybody to be a team lead. So we're really pushing them into roles that maybe they're not meant to be in.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's fine too.
Yep.
It's like, it's like when you hire an admin, an operations person, their love, the thing that gets them juiced is all the stuff as sales agents we hate.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the person you need for that role.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's amazing. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what they need to be doing with their lives.
Mhm.
And so again, I think it's when we just fall into the assumption trap that we're supposed to be amazing and awesome and doing all like covering way too many bases. We get
Mhm.
spread way, way, way too thin. And then it just starts to fall apart.
Well, and I think part of that too is recognizing that, you don't have to be good at everything. You
And that's
just need
fine too.
and that's fine too. Theme of the show.
That should be our book,
Yeah,
right?
that's cool.
And
That
that's fine too.
that's fine too. Um, but understanding where you're not strong and having the foresight to find somebody who is.
Yes.
Find
Yeah.
somebody who can plug that need for you in your business, whether it's the accountant or a
Yeah.
bookkeeper, somebody who can run your social media, rather than I think a lot of us agents, we get into this kind of vicious cycle. We're like, I'm not going to invest in that because I don't have enough money to do that. And so therefore, I'm just going to figure it out. And then they're on like YouTube and listening to podcasts and they're taking all these tiny little pieces and it's still not right. And then it just adds frustration. It's like, step back, assess what you're good at, then
Yeah.
what you're not good at, find the best person, hire them to do it. I see that a lot in coaching too.
I would imagine you see quite a bit in coaching. And that's another hole that I think agents don't realize is the need for a coach. Is you can look at Michael Jordan, for example. I'm not a huge sports fan, but I do know he's won a heck of a lot of rings. And I can
Mhm.
also tell you that he's lost a lot of games. But I can also say with the utmost confidence, there was never a time he didn't have a coach,
That's right.
if not
Yes.
multiple coaches.
Yes.
And it's having somebody see the road ahead or see that you're observe. Hey, what did you do with your day this week? Well, I spent a lot of time on YouTube. Tell me more about that. And
Mhm.
then you having the realization of like, at $250 an hour, I probably shouldn't have been the person doing that.
Yep.
And then they go, oh yeah, yeah, and I didn't enjoy it either. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe I'll hire somebody.
Oh, yes, but it's a hard look, it's hard, especially I mean,
It's
I
hard.
coach a lot of women who are new to the business, under
Yeah.
5 years in the business, and I remember when I was under 5 years in the business and I needed to hire a coach because a year in, I was hating the business, which should never happen. Like, a year into anything, you should not be hating.
Really,
I was
really,
hating it. I had no
really.
boundaries. I had clients who were calling me all the time. I was so frustrated, and I wanted to leave the business, and one of my girlfriends said, "Don't leave the business, call my business coach. You need help. You cannot do this by yourself." And I remember I called him, and the cost to hire him was 5 figures. And I remember new to the business, and I was like, "How am I gonna figure this out?" But I saw the longer term value.
Hmm.
I saw it as an investment in myself that would hold me accountable to growing at an accelerated pace.
Yes.
And that was when I hired my first coach, and since then, I've had multiple coaches.
Yeah.
I seem to always have a coach.
You know, it's funny, totally not related, but I studied and practiced kung fu for a decade.
Cool.
And I studied with this guy who he wound up moving away and doing jujitsu,
Mhm.
but he had a job where it was like goofy hours. So he was just doing private sessions, but he was doing like multiple times a week. And then I think it was like maybe 2 years later, we were like, hey, let's like meet up and spar.
Mhm.
And the dude destroyed me.
Oh, no.
Destroyed me.
Going, Sean.
But like at that point, like I had a black belt, I can hold my own, and the dude destroyed me, and I was like, I really, it like clicked on a different level of the power of even just group training versus one-on-one training. It's it like it at that point, and this was like in my 20s. Like
Mm.
anytime moving forward, I'm like, oh, I'm interested in doing this thing. How much are the group or how much are the private sessions? Like I
Yes.
want the one-on-one. Like I want the
Sure.
person to tell me, hey, drop your elbow or do this
Yep.
specific thing.
Yep.
And it's exponentially more powerful. So to have a like an actual coach evaluating the different aspects of your business,
Mhm.
it's a game changer.
It is.
And I
It
actually did
is.
E-Myth coaching, by the way.
You never
I
did what?
did the E-Myth offers coaching, and I did it with this woman, Melinda, badass.
Wow.
She was, I don't remember how many years in running her own business before she got, I mean, it was like multiple decades.
Wow.
She was amazing, completely changed the way I structured my business, changed the way I
Mhm.
thought about business,
Mhm.
changed everything.
Yes. And they can. A good coach can change your entire outlook and reframe things for you.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah,
thing that I
it's
think that's important, and this is where I thought you were going with your story when, you got what word did you use? Beat up?
I don't know, destroyed.
Destroyed. I thought you were gonna tell me that you sometimes need to put yourself in different arenas with people that are more advanced than you.
Yes, I agree with that too.
Because I've observed over my career that I never want to be the smartest, most successful person in a room.
No.
I want to be with the people that I aspire to one day be
Yeah.
and learn from them
Yes.
and really be curious in observing them and, building relationships with people that will help me get to the next level. And then,
Yeah.
full circle, turn around and do the same thing for someone else.
Yeah.
And every
You,
time I've found a new room, I've learned so many new things, and I feel like it
yeah,
constantly helps you evolve to the next level of who you're gonna be.
I agree. And what I find fascinating about this podcast is for me a new room,
Mhm,
especially when I started a couple of years ago. The caliber has just increased and gone up. But when you're in that right room, those people pull you to
mhm,
their level.
yes.
It's a very different dynamic. It's
Mhm,
very different when you're like competing with colleagues and peers.
mhm.
Like these people are gonna, they're like, come on, you're coming with us.
And I think that that comes to, this mindset of abundance.
I agree.
That I've observed very successful people, and not just monetarily successful. I mean, people who are
Mhm.
holistically happy with their definition of success, they have achieved it.
Yeah,
They're excited to have others get to that same place or whatever that place is for them.
yeah.
And I just think there's something magical about that. It doesn't surprise me that when you're in those rooms, you're energized by others.
Yeah, and I would agree. There is a, and I'm thinking about just the swath of conversations I've had. Is there's definitely an abundance mindset amongst the group,
Mhm.
even when it's bad.
Mhm. Oh, sure.
There's, as I shared right before we started recording, there's an acknowledgement like this isn't good. They don't dwell on it,
Mhm.
but then they're like, okay, so what's the opportunity here?
Yep.
Immediately, they're like, all right, what's the way out? Or to your earlier point is before I even take on this risky endeavor, how do I do that risky thing in a really safe way?
Yeah,
It's
like your
like,
mentor tells you you're crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Like, fine, jump. Do you have a parachute?
Alright, fine, fine.
It's funny. It's I always think of the boys is it's like, all right, they want to learn to skateboard.
Mhm.
Great. It's a dangerous activity. How do we make it safe? We'll put on pads and a helmet.
Sure. Yep.
Great. Now you can do the dangerous thing in a safe environment.
Mhm.
And it's not dissimilar a business. It's like,
Yes.
okay, if you're going to take that risky move, sure, we can label it as crazy, but
Mhm.
how do you now put on a helmet and make sure that you're, if you fall, which is plausible, like
Right.
how do you get back up and keep going?
But I think that that's really an important point to make, is that when you fall, you have to get back up.
Yeah.
And it can be so hard, especially when, you talked about the dark times and the industry is tough and there's a lot of changes happening and all of this. How do you get up?
How do you
Do
get
you
up?
fall forward? What do you do? Um, the way that I've looked at it always is history leaves a pattern.
Yes.
This is not the first time that I've fallen.
Hmm.
Every other time that I've fallen, I've leaped 5 steps forward. It might not have happened overnight, but
Hmm.
when I look back on my career trajectory, there's dips and then there were rises and then there were a little dip and then a rise. But the falls were never as deep as the first one because you learned from them, right?
It's
So
true.
here I am building this second business, this coaching business. And of course, I can't just like be a coach, right? I'm like, I want to build like another $1 million business. And how many women can I help? And how far are we going to do this? And, now I've got the strategic mindset. But what I've learned is that I've done it once before. The fear is not as it was at that time, right?
Yeah.
It's fun in a way that it perhaps wasn't the first time I did it
Yeah.
because I've learned so much. So instead of starting from here, I'm now starting from here. from experience and then building up. And
True.
it's really kind of a fascinating, I don't know, way to look at it is that you have to we're in an industry that is all about comparison. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we're always comparing ourselves to somebody else. Social
It's
media makes
society.
that easy. It's society. That's it.
Yeah.
But I firmly believe that when you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're comparing an apple to an orange. You need to
Sure.
turn around and compare yourself to yourself, but
Mm.
in years past. So it's like, who was Elizabeth Convery 5 years ago? Who was she 10 years ago? How far have I come? Where am I then going? What are the lessons that I've learned? What would I like to leave behind and not do again? Right? Because history leaves a pattern.
Yeah. That's a great point. I like that. Of comparing yourself to yourself, of who you were. Because yeah, I mean if you just scroll on Instagram for 2 minutes, you're gonna feel way behind.
You are. And look, and we're having this conversation as very successful realtors who have been in the business a long time. Think about the person who's brand new. Think about the person who's just trying to get their first listing or their
Yeah.
first buyer client. How are they feeling when they're comparing themselves to others? This is why I think it's so critical when you are a newer agent to be in the right rooms, to be in
Yeah.
community with others who are new to the business as well, right?
Yeah.
Get accountability partners. When I built my coaching program, I built this component of group coaching with people to
Smart.
meet once a week so that they can hear that others are going through the same thing that they're going through.
That's really powerful. But it goes back to your point of being in the right room
Mhm.
because the wrong room, they're going to echo it or like it's going to be like a woe is me. Whereas the right room, they're like, have you considered this? And giving you those different perspectives.
Right.
I really appreciate that comparison. And I think it's really important. And I think about it in my own life and
Mhm.
being 50 and still feeling like, oh man, I'm not, I should be further. I should be here. But then I look at where I was 2 years ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus, 10
There's
years
an
ago.
incredible book. Well, first I will say we've got to squash the shoulds.
Hmm.
Squash the shoulds because society, fill in the blanks. I
Yeah.
should be here. Everything you just said. I should be here. I should be this. I should look this way. I should weigh this much. I should have this much money. I should be this person. Should. But that goes back to your own definition of success, right?
Yeah.
Are you happy where you are? Is this where you want to be? And I think that part of that is really being able to look backwards. There's this incredible book. Here's another book, The Gap and the Gain. Have you read this
Hmm.
one?
I do not know this one.
Okay, Dan Sullivan is the author, and it's all about exactly what we're talking about. The human mind is set up to protect us, right?
Yeah.
So we naturally go to a place of fear. We naturally go to a place of scarcity. It's this fight or flight. That's the way we're wired, okay?
Yes.
So when you
100%.
look at a horizon, so many of us are like, I'm not, or a goal. Let's use the analogy instead of a horizon. Let's look at a goal. I'm not at my goal. I'm not a $50 million producer or 10 million, whatever number you want to be. I'm not there.
Yeah.
What Dan Sullivan says in the book is that instead of seeing where you're not, turn around and see how far you've come. And he has this exercise in the book that is like so incredibly powerful. He gives you, I don't know, maybe 8 different questions, and he
Hmm.
asks you to answer the question as if it were you 10 years ago. What motivated you at that time? Who were the people you were surrounded with? And a whole other series of
Hmm.
that. And it's a really natural way for you to then see how far you truly have come. I did this exercise when I read the book maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I could not believe how much I had achieved and not noticed in 10 years. What I mean by that is how many times do we get to a certain level, but because we are who we are with these high achievers, we're constantly trying to go to the next level. So we don't actually realize how much we've done, how much we've
Yeah.
accomplished. how many things we set out and thought we would do that we actually did. And this exercise is a great one because it forces you to see it.
That's a really good one. You just reminded me, Cielo, my partner, she always has a great way of looking at things, much better than I do. And so I learn a lot from her. But every week she writes down, like on a little piece of paper, the things she's most proud of,
Mm.
like
Smart
having
woman.
done
Yeah.
in the past week. And then at New Year's, she'll read all of them. And it gives her the opportunity to reflect on the year. And like, I can hear her in her office, like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did do that.
Oh yeah, that happened. Oh, that was really nice. But to your point, it gives you something to remember and kind of go back to, because
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur, we're only like forward, 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 more, more,
Mhm.
more, and we
Mhm.
don't look back. We don't pause. We don't.
No.
It's just not in our DNA.
I'm making a note of this because I'm going to follow Cielo's lead and do this. I love this exercise because I think that for a few reasons, it's sometimes very hard, I think particularly for women, to raise our own hand and pat ourselves on the back. So an
Mm.
exercise that requires you to say something you're proud of, wow, how powerful is that? I
Yeah,
wonder how hard that might be to do in the beginning days. What am I actually proud of this week? What are the things that I feel that I would wanna share loudly?
yeah. Yeah, and it makes you, which I mean, even me, I'm like thinking, all right, what's the past week? And then
Mhm,
I think about the different categories.
mhm,
Like, it's not how many checks I cashed. Like, that's, and it's like, oh, family. And then immediately I was like, family dinner. And
mhm.
like, you start going to different things
Yes.
rather than the achievement things of success. You go to, for me, and maybe it's just me at this age, but it's like immediately the things I'm proud of
Mhm.
are the connections and relationships I have
Yes.
versus business dealings and closings and things like that.
Mhm. I agree.
Yeah, this getting old thing is weird.
You're
Not
not
used to
yet
it.
old. Stop. It's like, no. No, no, no. Look, we're in an industry. What's the average age of realtors? Like 64?
68. It's I'll actually tell you, I'm working
Really?
on do, 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 do.
Stop.
It's surprisingly, oh gosh. So I'm actually working on a project with Susie to help agents kind of get back control of their day.
Okay.
And I did
Yep.
a bunch of demographic research on it. It might not be 68, but it's old. It's in the 60s. I don't want to say old. It's in the 60s. The industry is predominantly women,
Uh-huh. I knew that.
and then it's predominantly like college educated. But it's really it's fascinating to do it.
Mhm.
I think it
Yes.
was,
See,
if
my
I'm not,
point, you are much younger than you think because the
it's
average
true.
age in your industry is so much more than you are.
I know it's wild, which is also, there's like a refreshing component is, and it's kind of your point or our point within this. It's like if you figure out the things you really enjoy doing,
Mhm.
there's longevity to this as well. If
Absolutely.
if you're doing those things that you, it, I'm figuring if it's the average age, there's people above that number, 70, 75, and they're
No
doing
doubt.
it because they're enjoying it. Like, you're not doing it because you loathe every breathing second of it.
Sure. Totally. Yes, but also important note to put money away so that you're not having to
Oh
sell your
yeah, there's that part too.
yeah, I'm always
Don't do it out of
exactly,
necessity.
stop
Is
this. I don't wanna be crouching down for a lockbox when I'm 90. Like,
I know, out of like sheer panic because you need to pay the bills. Have you read Profit First?
you're the second person to tell me about Profit First. I have not read it.
That one really helped me. It was, I would say, like from a business perspective, E-Myth and Profit First.
Okay.
really helped me change the way that I thought about the finances, which I will just say I'm not a spreadsheet
Mhm.
finance guy. That's a very, very hard, that's the hard hat for me to wear. Very difficult. And so I hired a really good bookkeeper and a really good
Smart.
accountant.
See? Don't try to be on YouTube figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, not only that, like there's so much bullshit in terms of tax
Mhm.
advice on YouTube or on any of the social platforms. I would not follow any tax advice or financial
Smart.
advice from
Mhm.
anybody on those platforms.
I love
But
it.
Profit First is really good because it helps change the way we think of money as it comes
Mhm.
into the business, and then
Mhm.
where are the buckets it needs to go, and just really dumbs it down. I think for any entrepreneur, it's a must read. I actually, my oldest is really wanting to go the entrepreneurial path,
Mhm.
and I was like, read this book.
Yeah. The other one that makes me think of, Profit First is Simple Numbers by Greg
Hmm.
Crabtree, which is
I
a very
haven't.
similar concept of, different buckets, paying yourself first,
Yes.
all of the things that it's probably very similar.
I will definitely check that one out. Yeah, I'm sure it's similar, and it really helped me understand.
Mhm.
I think after I read that book, I have there's four I have four accounts for the business, five accounts, and then money by percent comes
Mhm.
into one and gets divvied up into all the
Yep.
others. And and then the way that I play recklessly but in a safe way is then before I make a hire or before I hire a coach or before I make a move, I then I have all my operating expenses covered, and I typically don't for like a radical marketing direction. I won't make a move on that thing until I have a year of reserves for that thing, so
Very
that I
smart,
can flub it up to the nth degree, and there's no
and you'll
like
be fine. Yeah.
everything is fine. Like the
Good.
business is fine. I'm not stressing. I'm not panicking in the morning. Because I think the other mistake entrepreneurs make, and I'm sure you can attest to this, but they're making decisions as they go. Like they're running out of money and they're like, well, let me just measure another 2 days and then go there, and then I'll measure another 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
It's
No, I
bad.
mean, look, my business was saved during COVID because I had cash put
Same,
aside, exactly
same.
like you said, and I remember at that time, I mean, there were people, they were losing their minds. I mean, I would be on calls, whoever organized them with other entrepreneurs, and, um, just the conversation around it was just like, "I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make payroll. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I mean, I have to get PPP," and it was like, gosh, I didn't realize we're very rare.
Yeah, I would definitely say I was lucky for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Like I was lucky. My dad owned a business for he owned three of them, but the last one that had the biggest impact on me, he owned for 45 years. And then when I got into the business, I was like, listen, I'm gonna call you on Friday, 9 o'clock. We're gonna talk for an hour, not about family and nothing else. Like no drama, no BS. I'm just gonna ask you business questions. And he's like, okay.
How lucky were you to have that mentor, right?
It was crazy. It was awesome.
And no surprise your son wants to get into entrepreneurship. It's all in all of your blood.
You know the tipping point for him. Well, really quick with my dad, one of the very first questions I ask is, if you were going to start a business again today from
Mhm.
scratch, with everything you know now, who are the first three people you hire, and why? And he's like, he was like, okay, hire an attorney to
Mhm.
structure and set everything up for you,
Yep.
and then hire an accountant, bookkeeper,
Mhm.
and make sure they just keep everything organized for you. And I was like, okay, done, heard.
Sounds
And
good.
then that's why I moved it over. My son, we were, I think he was in high school, and something came up and he's like, hey, I need to go to blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, no problem. And then I moved some stuff on my calendar. I picked him up and we were driving there, and he's like, hey, I really appreciate you driving me. I know it's like last minute and disrupt your day. And he's like, there's like this long pause, and he was like looking out the window, and he's like, I want to be able to do that when I'm working, like in my professional life. And I go, what do you mean? Do what? And he's like, I want to be able to just control my environment to the point where if I need to go hop in my car to drive my son somewhere,
Yep.
I can. And I was like, all right, man.
Mhm.
And that was his, like, that's what he saw. And I was like, that's amazing.
It's so good. I was on a panel a few years ago, with other business owners, and they asked me the question was, "What's my definition of success?" And
Mm,
one of the things that I shared was that from the beginning of the day until the end of the day, I entirely control my time,
yeah.
and there's something so powerful in that. To be
Yeah.
able to do what you did in that moment and have your son be able to see that, it's rare and it's, I think, something that isn't celebrated enough
Mm,
because we're so busy on to the next thing, on to the
yeah.
next thing, right? But being able to take that pause, have that moment, and say, like, wow, yeah, this is an amazing part of owning your own business.
It's a huge part. And then I think simultaneously, it's for me, it's why am I doing it? And
Mhm,
it's not for me, it's for them. And
mhm.
then it's those moments. It's having you 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 can't get those moments back. Like
Yes.
they're both are off to college and they don't live with us anymore. And
Mhm,
they're here for vacation and they'll be gone actually tomorrow.
mhm.
And so it's my success now is defined by being able to have the float, the money, the resources to be able to go have even those just tiny moments
Mhm.
with them.
Yes.
That's it.
And another success is that they want to be with you.
True.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, that's post teens.
That's
The
me
teens years,
reciprocating
not so
this back
much.
to you.
That, but that's like that's the outside, the other side. Of, like during the teen years, oof.
Yeah. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, so I'm, like, in
Ah,
the golden years of the
I love
babies,
it.
and I am enjoying so much of it. I mean, it is I think it's a highlight of my life, having these
Yeah,
children and watching them grow, it's just such joy, and it's hard. I mean, like, I'd be lying to you if I'm like, "Oh, it's so
yeah.
easy to have a sassy toddler girl," but, it's great.
Just
It
remember there's my niece was like super hard headed and like
Uh-huh.
super driven. I mean, even at like 3, she'd be like,
Oh, yeah.
no. But now those qualities are for her career, they're paying off
Oh,
tenfold.
1,000%. I mean, I look at my husband sometimes and I'm like, "We wanted to raise an independent little girl, but, like, this is kind of insane, right?" He's like, "Yeah." I mean, she runs the household. Our poor son is in kindergarten, and he's like, "Mommy?"
Just remember, it's gonna pay off. It's It's like the investment now. It's tough,
Oh,
but
it's fun though. I have a group of friends who are in their 50s, and, their sons are older, right? And, they're probably around your kid's age, and I was talking to them about Jack, my son, a couple years ago, and they said, "You really need to get a notebook, and you need to write this stuff down because you will
yeah,
never remember all of the cute things that he said, and then you can look back on it when he's a teenager and he's driving you crazy." But I did exactly what they said. I started a notebook for each of my children, and I write down, like, all the cute things they're doing and saying, and I'm not as diligent with it as I probably could be, but it is so lovely to know that
yeah,
that's there.
yeah. It's funny, not funny. My mom passed away like a year and a half ago, and when we
Sorry.
were going through, like, she had this trunk, which I don't think my sister and I realized, but it was like a trunk full of everything from when we were a kid, like papers, like tons and tons, and we were
All your
going through
artwork
it.
and your little handprints.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I kind of remember like drawing that or doing that. But there were like little things where she would like it would just be like a little scratch piece of paper of like this
Mhm.
note of like Sean's first tooth and blah blah blah. Just like, but it is being the recipient of it. It is very endearing. It's very
Yes,
sweet to be like, oh,
yes.
that was the moment that they saw as special or
Mhm.
important, and so
Yep.
it gives you a different perspective into your parents, which is nice.
Mhm. Oh, for sure.
This has been just honestly such a lovely conversation. I really really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Likewise. Yeah.
If somebody's inclined to reach out and learn more about your coaching, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, my website is my name, www.elizabethconvery.com. And
That's
all the
easy enough.
information, very easy. You can follow me on Instagram at elizabeth.convery. And I write a newsletter twice a week called The Toolkit for Confident Agents. I love to write. I'm always talking about my experiences, things that I'm seeing in coaching,
Yeah,
to really help women not make the mistakes that I made as I was building my business.
smart. Are you working on a book? Why do I feel like you're working on a book?
I'm not working on a book. I've had a few people ask me if I'd write one, but
Huh,
maybe eventually.
huh, all
I
right.
get these kids a little older, they're taking a lot of time.
It's true. Yeah, spend as much time.
What would we call the book, Sean? What would it be called? And
Um,
that's okay.
oh, and that's okay. I can't believe I just blanked on that after we joked about it so many times.
So good.
Awesome. Well, that is a wrap.